What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bionicle Inspiration Series, the show where we spotlight Bionicle MOCs from across the Bionicle community to give you some ideas for your own future stuff, as well as just to take a look at some awesome things. And, you know, there isn't a better combination of Bionicle and something else than there is Bionicle and Transformers. I mean, heck, I'm sure, like me, there are many times people look at your Bionicle sets or MOCs or whatever and they go, wow, those are some cool Transformers, and you're like, it's no, okay, fine. So, hey, we're going to combine the two today, and we're going to look at some MOCs that replicate Transformers from the old toy line. So, let's just dive straight into the very first Transformer MOC here. This is Grimlock, one of my favorites. Always loved Grimlock as a kid. And this is Transformers Nizha line? Don't know how you pronounce that. So, this is a set? Question mark? I don't know. So, going to Cerebitron, or Cerebitron. I always refer to them as Cerebi, like the Pokemon website. Cerebitron, very similar sounding names. This is the article that is in the link in the description if you want to read it. And it reads the following. Remember the Transformers Nizha line? It was a China exclusive line with retools and new molds in Cyberverse style packaging. We haven't heard of this line for a while, but it seems to still be around. We have an image of the, oh dear lord, Sheb 2 toy box of another entry in this line, consisting of a Cyberverse Grimlock building set made up of LEGO Technic style pieces. It has different face options and can be disassembled and rebuilt into his dinosaur mold. The product will most probably not be released outside of China, which is a crime. If this is a thing you can buy, I want one. This is awesome. This article doesn't have images of it transformed into the dinosaur mode, which, why not? So that's a crime. If anyone happens to have this or have images of that, I'd love to see it. Or know where I can buy one, because I'd love one. Yeah, this is insanely cool. So apparently this is a thing. I reached out to my friend ShadowGear6335 shortly before recording this. Haven't heard back from him yet, but he knows a lot about Transformers. So if you have information on this, let me know. This is weird, but cool. But regardless, there's a lot we can learn about building a Transformer from this. I wish we could see the dinosaur mode so we could learn even more, but unfortunately not. So, fun facts over. The thing I love about this model the most is the amount of Technic panel pieces that are being used. So even like this Technic set here, you can see one little tiny little Technic panel being used there in black, right? I don't have the image in front of me. I don't know why I'm referencing an image I'm not even looking at. It's technically yellow. I was wrong. Yeah, bunch of those panel pieces in varying different sizes and stuff like that being used, and I kind of love it. You know, many Technic sets come with different shapes and sizes of panel pieces, and I always talk about how helpful they are for Bionicles, and especially very helpful here. Something I love about the Transformer aesthetic is that they are very blocky, very sort of like rectangular and sort of like, I don't know, square-like, I suppose is the wording. It's the wording I'm using. And to see it using some of these Technic panel pieces, it really perfectly matches the aesthetic that you often see on Transformers. And also, I imagine it's pretty lightweight too, because those panel pieces, you know, they're just sort of like L-shaped or U-shaped or just sort of like a strip or whatever. They probably don't have a lot of weight to them. If you're building something large like this, that's very helpful, because you don't want the top of the MOC to be so heavy that it can't stand up, right? So doing that's great. Like, I imagine pretty much all of this, like the legs, specifically like the torso and the arms and stuff, would be probably pretty hollow, excluding some of the actual, like, you know, like skeleton that's underneath. Which is something that you definitely want if you're building something big. So that in itself is cool from a structural integrity point of view, but also just matching that Transformers aesthetic that looks awesome here. I also quite like the shaping on the foot, which is using some more of those Technic panel pieces. You can see how there's a kind of a larger one on the side and then two of those smaller ones at the top there, and just the way they sort of transition one into the other looks quite nice. So I just like how that looks. I like too that this Grimlock toy here has a sort of, it's not really a custom face, because apparently this is a real toy, so in that sense it's not custom. But then, why are they using LEGO Technic pieces? Are they like, I guess they're probably like knockoff pieces that are inspired by Technic. Whatever the terminology you want to call these, it's a confusing term, because this is a weird outlier set thing. But the headpiece is most notably not inspired by a LEGO piece. It's its own unique thing, which I think makes sense, because sure, maybe if you wanted to try and replicate this with existing pieces, you probably could be able to do it with a good whack of stuff. I don't know if some of the colors might be non-existent. I'm not really sure. But the headpiece would be the hardest thing to make, and maybe you could try and replicate it with system pieces, which could work. But it kind of makes sense going custom, because then you can really be specific and match it to the original source material there. That, to me, makes sense. Final little detail that I love about this is the little spikes on the legs there. There's something about it that feels very dinosaur-like, because, of course, Grimlock transforms into a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Just seems very appropriate there. So, yeah, this is an awesome recreation of Grimlock here, and even cooler that this may or may not be a set. I'm going to try and do a bit of research on that. Might even do a separate video about that, because that's cool. So, please, if you know more about this, I'm hungry to learn. On to the next mock. This is by Colosawa, and this is Shockwave from Transformers Dark of the Moon. So if you're like me and you're not a big fan of the Transformers movies by Michael Bay, that's okay, because at least this version of Shockwave here looks very cool, especially translated into Bionicle here. So I mentioned before how that thing was a set that maybe you could buy. I tried to look one up on eBay, couldn't find anything. This one here, if you want to build it, there are instructions out there. So you can head over to Rebrickable, there's a link in the description, and you can buy the instructions yourself. And if you don't, I might just do it, because this looks like a fun build. But yeah, this is just a brilliant recreation of Shockwave from Dark of the Moon. It looks so incredibly accurate. And it's one of those things that if you don't look at it right, you're like, oh yeah, that's a cool, like, 1-to-1 scale model. That's totally not made out of Lego. And then you look at it again, you're like, it's Lego. Wow. So, hey, that's always a mark of a very good mock, that's for sure. Some little details that I love about this, the head design specifically, using the little, Rakshi headpiece in silver there, kind of really perfectly matches the shape of the head. And then even the inclusion of those two little clip pieces there, little system pieces, sort of, I guess, where the mouth is. Again, just sort of matches the source material nicely, and there's just a nice little inclusion of some system parts there. The ribcage is beautiful, using some different varying sizes of minifigure arms and different claw pieces and talons and stuff like that from, Bionicle sets and different things. Perfectly matches the source material once again, even the inclusion of those bucket handle pieces in gold. Love that little pop of gold, works very nicely. The sort of upper leg design here, using some bulk heads in silver there, of course, works well. Again, just a lovely inclusion and matches all the different textures and things, and once again matches the source material perfectly. I can only imagine the amount of hours that went into this to have it be so, just to be that kind of perfect match in that sense. The other unique part use here for sure is the foot pieces in silver. Now these came on the Knights Kingdom construction figures. They came in a variety of different colors, but here we can see them being used in silver. They partner very nicely with those bulkheads and just the rest of the textures here. So lovely to see some brilliant kind of texture matching between some of these different pieces here. It's awesome. The gun on Shockwave here, again, very accurate, very, very cool looking. Lovely seeing those sorts of like claw pieces and things there to form sort of the front of the gun, if that's what you want to call it. Looks really cool. Even the inclusion of some of these tire pieces in that sort of metallic silver there, forming, I guess, like an ammo chain that kind of leads to the back with that jetpack with that nice little pop of, is it trans orange or trans red? I think it's, I don't know. It's kind of weird. It looks more trans red. I didn't think those pieces came in trans red. It's the little boat studs. I thought they were more trans orange. I'm not going to pretend to know, but whatever color that is, I think it's trans orange. Either way, looks cool. That nice pop there is very nice, and I'm sure is accurate to the source material as well, because everything on this mock it only makes sense that those would be too. So a killer cool version of Shockwave from Transformers Dark of the Moon. Absolutely nailed it. Let's move over to one of the coolest Transformers mock. This is by Mike Neves, a man who I was fortunate enough to briefly meet at Brick Fair this year, which was really cool. This is his version of Soundwave, not Shockwave, Soundwave. Of course, as well, he also has versions of Laserbeak and Ravage as well, two of his cassette tapes here. Not to scale, but that's fine, they don't need to be. So let's quickly talk about Shockwave here because, it's beautiful. The head design just perfectly matches the source material. Gorgeous. I love the inclusion of what appears to be two of these sort of like panel-y kind of pieces here. One in white and then I suppose one in red behind it. Don't really know how those are attached. I imagine it's just sort of either with friction or some sort of illegal connection or something. I really don't know, but man, it matches the look of Soundwave's face there, so that's awesome. Even the inclusion of those white robot arm pieces there. I don't know, there's just something about the way that those sort of flow that it perfectly matches the look of his face, so that's brilliant. Again, I kind of mentioned it on Grimlock. I love with Transformers the sort of very kind of blocky, square kind of rectangle-like look that they have. You know, you see here these very sort of blocky shoulders and these very sort of rectangular lower arms that also have a bit of a curve to them at the same time. There's something about that that's so within the realm of aesthetics from Transformers. And so it's nice to see that just perfectly translated here. Something that we'll touch upon later when we get to Laserbeak and Ravage as well, but Mike has this just like expert skill at creating such sort of like smooth, organic looking designs that have this sort of kind of, yeah, like bulky Lego-ness to them, but also the most like smooth, incredible textures that you don't know how the heck he created that with Lego pieces, but he did. And he just creates such lifelike, accurate designs with Lego. It's incredible. So it's great to see that translated on one of my favorite Transformers here, that's for sure. I love the inclusion too of some of these printed arrow pieces on the torso, and even the sort of cheese mosaic using some cheese slopes here to form the sort of little like arrow, I suppose you would call it, in yellow on the torso there. It's those little subtle details there that really go a long way. So yeah, Mike absolutely nailed it with this MOC here. It's beautiful. Let's quickly touch upon, let's start with Laserbeak. So of course, if you don't know, Laserbeak is one of the cassettes that goes into Soundwave because he transforms into a cassette player. And the cassette then, of course, transforms into Laserbeak here. So what's cool, because obviously this doesn't actually transform. Unfortunately, none of these transform in this episode, which seems, not the best for a Transformers-themed episode. But Grimlock is meant to, but I didn't have pictures, did I? So, yeah, it is what it is. But I like the fact that it looks like it would transform anyway. You know, the fact that he has built these wings here with all these different multicolored parts to sort of match the source material certainly gives it the sense that it would transform. And yeah, kind of on that as well, like the head design here, there's something about it that's a lot more sort of like blocky and robot looking, but at the same time perfectly captures the look that you would expect from like a vulture or a bird of sorts here. So just, I don't know, lovely way of designing that to kind of match those two designs there and perfectly nail the look of Laserbeak there. It's beautiful. One interesting detail here is the way that the wings are attached. They simply just attach onto a hand connector and then some of the very small Hero Factory bone pieces there. So it allows for a good amount of posability with that design, but also it's just a pretty simple connection point there. A lot of Mike's stuff can be very complex in that sense, so it's nice to see something a little bit more simplistic and approachable there, I suppose. It's simple, but it gets the job done, right? Let's go to Ravage very quickly now. So, always been one of my favorites, and the way that Mike has captured this, I don't know, there's something about it that's almost like Disney animation. It seems so filled with life and these fascinating like curves that this that Ravage has here are incredible. Like this sort of one at the top here where he's sort of like stalking. I don't know, it just, to me, I can immediately see that kind of coming to life, and you can imagine how this character would move. And I don't know, I think that's just the way that he's created the curve sort of towards like the top of the front legs there, and just the posability that he's been able to put into this. I don't know what it is, but just Mike is so good at what he does that he just fills his MOCs with so much life. They have this beautiful smoothness and organicness to them that it just transcends and stops looking like Lego and starts looking like a sketch or an animation or something. So yeah, the way he uses smooth, organic textures and pieces and stuff like that is revolutionary, honestly. I like the inclusion of using some of these boat studs for the connection points on the back and the front legs there, where the grey transitions into the black. Though that sort of boat stud connection there, I think, is really helpful because it's a great way to kind of maintain textures in that sense. You know, everything on Ravage here is so sort of smooth looking. But, you know, maybe if you use like a typical kind of Hero Factory bone or any other kind of like socket ball connection, it might not look as smooth. It might start to look a little bit too more like mechanical and not as lifelike in that sense. So using those boat studs there is a great way to have that connection point and have a bit of posability with it too, but it still looks sort of smooth and all the textures match in that sense. So I think it's really clever to do that, and also it just makes for a nice looking design at the same time. It's cool. It's interesting, the one little bit here that isn't smooth, I would argue, is the sort of center of the torso here, where there's those two grey pieces that have those exposed axle holes. But I kind of like that they're like that, because to me that looks like the one part of this that's unarmored, and maybe it's deliberately unarmored so that it can have a bit more sort of like movement and posability to it. And yeah, to me it would make sense that that's the sort of one bit of exposed area that doesn't have like black armor over the top. So I kind of like that texture there is a little bit different, because I imagine that, if you were looking at the real Ravage in that sense, that would be, an exposed area that's unarmored. So yeah, it's interesting. The one little bit that you could maybe say, that's an inconsistent texture, Mike. He's made it work, and he's made it work really well. So yeah, Mike, he does some incredible stuff. So that's it for some Transformers in this Transformer-themed episode. Hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at some really impressive Transformers today, and hopefully it gave you some ideas if you wanted to tackle your own Transformers MOCs as well. Thank you very much for watching. There'll be links in the description to everything you saw today. There'll also be links to my own social media if you want to check out some of the stuff that I've got going on. That's the place to check it out. If you want to submit some of your own stuff to the show, or maybe you have some information on that Grimlock toy that I mentioned at the start, you can email me at the submission email that's on your screen right now. Send me whatever you can. If you want your MOC featured on the show, put it in that email, send it to me, and I'll do my best to feature it very soon. I believe that's pretty much everything. Thank you very much for watching. Happy building, and bye for now.